Bonsoir tout le monde, bienvenue à cette réunion du Conseil
Good evening,
municipal.
everyone, and welcome to this public meeting of April 24th, 2023. Before we begin this evening, I would just like to point out that the City of Dieppe recognizes that the land on which it operates is part of the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. Now, for the opening word, dear colleagues, let's have the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Welcome, everyone. For all those of you who are not comfortable in French, there are headsets. There are headsets for the interpretation if you need them.
Devices, they're available at the back of the room. Alors, j'appelle la réunion à l'ordre.
I would like to call this meeting to order. Do we have, well, it would seem that we do have quorum. So let's move on. Declaration of conflict of interest. Have there been any declarations of conflict of interest? Nobody? Okay. The adoption of the agenda. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, that the agenda is adopted as presented. On the question, all those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. It is carried as presented. Presentations, inquiries, and petitions. At item number 7, first of all, 7.1, inquiries by council members of the Kodiak Regional RCMP. And I have to look here who's here. Staff Sergeant. The Staff Sergeant is here. Malenfant, welcome. Welcome here this evening for this first. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, councillors, members of the public, staff. I'm very happy here for my first presentation to replace Chantal Farah, who's not here this evening, but will be here next time. Now, the community policing unit, the members of the community policing are continuing their routines to ensure visibility in the problem areas. We continue to be present in the schools, for example. As you are aware, this year is the 150th anniversary of the RCMP. So the members of the unit have organized certain contests in the schools. At Anna Malenfant, for example, the grade 5 students were to present a poster board with logos and pictures that represent the RCMP, and to reward them, we brought pizza to the school, and I think they really appreciated that. And with the nice weather coming, the community policing unit will be on the lookout for homeless camps, and with our partners in the 3 municipalities. Now, the crime reduction unit, the CRU, we were able to apprehend a known thief in the region. He had a network of shoplifting in Champlain Place. He had stolen for over $70,000. Him and his ring had stolen for over $70,000 worth of merchandise. He used very sophisticated techniques for his shoplifting activities, but thanks to the efforts of the investigators, we were able to apprehend him, and he will be facing justice. Now, in terms of the General Investigation Unit, they work for the more complex cases in the region. And this day, we'd like to talk to you about the fraud case at a car dealer in the region, as we had mentioned it in the past, that some people have been victims of identity theft and fraud. The investigation is underway. 4 people will be facing justice, and they have over 100 charges will be laid against these 4 people. Now, on the patrol side, as you know, we receive a number of calls for service. The members work very hard to answer all of the calls. On April 12th, the members of the patrol responded to a call for a house on fire here on Virginia Street. The firemen came to the firefighters appeared to put out the fire, but during that they found evidence of cannabis plants around the zone where the fire had started. One of the occupants was apprehended for an excess production of cannabis, and the file is ongoing, and charges will be laid in this affair. On the same day, on April 12th, we were told that somebody had tried to fill a fictitious or prescriptions in the Dieppe area. A 20-year-old was located and arrested in a Moncton hotel, and the his we had prepared the search warrant, and we secured the hotel room, and we were able to seize a number of elements, and I think we have good evidence to lay charges in this affair. We're continuing to work towards the major events, different concerts that will be held this summer. And so that is a summary of what our Kodiak RCMP has been and will be working on. Thank you for that summary. Any questions from councillors? Starting with Councillor Lantaigne. Thank you, Your Worship. Sergeant Malenfant, a good hockey colleague, hockey buddy, but I won't say anything on the record because of that. Thanks. Now, over the last few months and over the last few years, we've been hearing about excessive noise because of cars that have modified their mufflers, and now with spring on its way. Well, in the last few months, a few months ago, I think, I forget the date, but the city had sent a letter to the province of New Brunswick asking if they could give the RCMP greater tools or perhaps amend the act in order to allow us to arrest some of these people and bring them to justice. This was supported by a number of cities and towns and the Association of Municipalities. Has there been anything further done? Are there any new developments? Are you aware of the issue? It's something that could allow us to change the situation. I don't have any information on this, but it's a great question, and I will ensure follow up. I know that last year, council, we had told council that we had had a certain amount of success with the motor vehicle inspections. If we stop a car that is overly loud, we send them for an inspection, and if the now that is a good solution, but if the province wants to give us greater tools, great. But I think that we'll look at that if we can do that again this year to send them for inspections. But I'll ask Inspector Farah if there's follow-up. Yes, it's something citizens are asking me about as well. Thank you. Councillor Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention that a resident told me that around Lou McNairn School on Gauvin Street, on both sides, at the end of the school day, around 2:50 p.m., there are always a number of cars that park on both sides of the road, so that buses have to stay in the middle of the school of the road in order to go to the school and pick up the kids. And a number of parents park there, and there are road signs saying no parking, but they still stop on both sides on the bike lane. So perhaps if you could do some patrols in that area, just to see who parks in these spots to pick up their kids. And we have a similar problem as Councillor Godbout had brought up last year in for Mathieu Martin, people enter the parking lot in front in order to turn around at the lights, and that's still happening. Is that in the morning? Yes, in the morning. And I think people come in and instead of using the lights correctly. That's all. Thank you. Yes, I've taken note.
Merci. Quelqu'un d'autre?
Anybody else?
Vous vous en sauvez facilement
Well,
ce soir.
you're getting off early. Easy.
Comme, comme je suggère toujours, vous êtes
And
toujours
as
le
I
bienvenu
always
ici.
say, you're more than welcome to stay for
On
the rest
parlera
of
des
the evening. But
programmations
if you need to leave, I'm sure that you have
que le
greater
council
priorities than listen
municipal ce soir.
to the
Merci, Monsieur
council
le maire.
deliberate this evening.
Bonne
Thank you.
soirée. Alors, ça conclut l'item numéro
So
7.1
that
au
wraps up 7.1. So 7.2, a presentation on policy L1 on rental rates for facilities and municipal spaces.
Alors, Monsieur Leblanc.
Mr. Leblanc.
Donc, merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
De m'accueillir ici ce soir. Donc, ce soir, je voulais vous parler de la
Thank you for
classification des installations
allowing me to speak this morning. Tonight, I'm going to talk about rental rates for facilities and municipal
voilà, de la
spaces.
politique.
What
D'expliquer
is
qu'est-ce qui
this
a passé
policy
au conseil
L1?
municipal pour être
It
entendu
was
le
a
5
policy
mars.
that was repealed from Municipal Council on May 28th of last year,
Puis, l'amélioration
2022,
des
and
infrastructures.
it gives the rental rates for municipal infrastructure.
Nos objectifs au niveau
The
du
objectives
développement
at
communautaire,
Community
c'est de maintenir
Development
la majorité des tarifs
Department is to maintain most of the
et on veut
tariffs and the
clarifier
rates for
certains des
2023. We want to modify two of the rates, however.
de
It's
modifier
important to
au
mention
tarif pour
that.
le terrain de
We
cricket.
want to add a new rate for the cricket field. It's a new field that'll be added to our sports fields. And this evening, we're going to ask for your approval of all of this.
Donc, on a aussi des objectifs à long terme, parce que ça a quand même été une
And
courte
there's
période
also some long-term objectives.
de Dieppe. Donc, on a quand même des
We
objectifs
have
à long
we
terme
have
parce
these
qu'on veut quand même
long-term
éviter les
objectives
excédents.
to
Donc, on va établir une
we
tarification
want to
basée sur le principe
establish
d'utilisation payeur et d'équité en
rates
matière de
based on
subventions.
the principles of
Donc,
user
on
pay
va essayer
and equity
essayer de
in
voir
terms of
si
the
au niveau de la
subsidies
gestion,
for the different
on peut
sports and
améliorer notre
recreation
efficacité
activities. We want to
d'utilisation de nos
increase rental
installations.
revenues. We want to assess the types of
Après ça, il faut
users that
passer le
use
projet de
the
la mise
facilities.
à jour de la
Now we
politique
need to
terrain
update
foncière
policy
apportée aujourd'hui
L1 that we're
et
doing in part this
l'accréditation
evening,
des
as
accréditations
well as the
des institutions
accreditation policy
comme
L14
et
that
aussi aujourd'hui lors de nos politiques.
that is responsible for the accreditation of different
Selon nos
community groups.
informations,
And
il y
then
a pas de délibération
we
prise en 2024 qui se
we
profile.
will be asking for approval of this during the budget deliberation period in the fall of, and at that time you can determine what is the revenues you want to obtain and when you're and determine the rental rates at that time. The method that we're using, we compared the rates in 6 different municipalities, and we assessed the hours of use compared to the operation costs. So it took a long time, but we were able to do it. Now, the rates that are going to be affected are the arena ice. So we have AGL and the Uniplex centers and what we call multi-sports fields that are the cricket, baseball, and soccer fields. Here you see the arena ice rates. We propose that the regular rate go from 260 an hour to 269 dollars an hour. During the daytime, there's a 40% discount, so it gives a 162 rate. After the peak period in the evening, it goes down to 215 an hour. For the accredited youth, that brings it to 162, and off season that would go back to 215. For the multi-sport fields, the formula is somewhat different, but we're proposing to increase the regular rate to 11.50 an hour, the daily rate 7.50, and the accredited youth rate for 7.50, as well as the practice field rate of $4.
C'est tout, juste comme ça.
And that's
Semble
all.
que ce que j'ai
Thank
lu est
you.
beaucoup plus long
It
que ça.
seems to me that what I read was a lot longer than that.
Alors, question de la part des membres
Okay,
du conseil.
questions from councillors?
Aucune question.
No
Je vous
questions?
remercie pour la
Thank you for
présentation.
your presentation.
Et ça nous amène au prochain
Which brings
item,
us to the
le
next
7.3
item,
du côté
7.3,
de l'audience publique
and this is a
qui nous amène
public hearing,
avec Monsieur Alexandre Girard.
and
Alors, Monsieur
Alexandre Girard is here to present this
Bonjour, Monsieur le
item.
maire. Je vais
Thank
juste
you. Good evening. Good
télécharger
evening.
ma présentation.
And I'm just going to load up my presentation here.
Donc, merci encore, Monsieur le maire. Et
Thank
comme
you
son nom
again,
l'indique,
Your Worship and
nous sommes
councillors.
présentement en audience publique
We're
pour
currently in a
une
public
demande de
hearing for a
conditions
conditional
d'un
use
CU
request
au compte
and
multifamilier
application that we
pour
need,
deux
that we
habitations
received
multifamiliales
for two
sur un terrain
multi-family
localisé sur le chemin
residences on
Melançon.
Melanson Road.
Passer à travers avec
So
vous
I'm
les
just
étapes
going to
basiques du
go
processus.
through the essential dates with
L'usage
you
du
very
terrain, nous avons
quickly.
entamé le
So
processus
we
le
started the
27
process
le
on
27 mars.
March
Par voie de
27th
résolution, on a fixé
through
la
resolution.
recommandation
We
du
set a
comité
date for the
participatif
public
d'ordonnance
hearing and the recommendation of the PAC.
pour
Right now we're at the
l'exploitation.
public
Le
hearing
dossier va
on it.
être présenté
The
au
issue will be
comité
presented
consultatif
to the
d'urbanisme pour leur considération.
uh,
Prise de décision revient
the
au
PAC
conseil pour
on May 17th, and then the council is to
Donc, juste
take
pour vous
its
mettre en
decision on May
contexte, c'est
22nd.
en question.
Just to explain the
Vous voyez la localisation
context,
en rouge sur
the
laquelle
site,
devant
the
vous,
location is what you see in red
au
right
coin
here.
de
It's on the corner, almost on the corner of
Melançon.
Centrale and Melançon roads.
Donc, on a une perspective du site.
Here you
Donc,
can
vous
see
pouvez
the
voir
site,
où est-ce que j'ai mon
and
curseur.
you can see my cursor here.
Où
You
est-ce que
can't see it on the screen, but
déboisé, là,
where
c'est
you see the part
effectivement
that
là où ce que les deux
is
habitations multifamiliales
without
seraient
trees
proposées.
is where they are proposing to build
Juste
these
un
two
contexte
buildings.
du zonage
Just to give you an
que vous avez devant
idea
vous. Donc, le
of
site
the
en question est
zoning,
zoné institutionnel.
it is zoned institutional, this area.
Les terrains là, qui entourent le site en
The
question sont soit zonés
the
R1
lots
ou
around
R2.
the area are either R1 or
Donc, juste
RHM.
encore là, à titre
So
d'exemple.
once again, as an
Donc,
example,
les usages qui sont déjà permis
R1, what is already
on a une
allowed
liste
in the
devant vous.
institutional zone is you see
Et puis,
here,
la liste continue. Donc,
and
on
the
pourra
list goes on. So
remplir
we could
d'usages
allow a whole
de
range of different
l'institutionnel.
uses in the institutional zone.
Donc, ici, l'usage d'une habitation multifamiliale
And
se
here
situe
for a
entre les services
multifamily
communs.
dwelling
Donc,
is it
le
would be
conseil
allowed
l'article 59 de la loi sur
under
l'urbanisme.
conditions imposed by the
Donc,
council
l'article 59,
according to the
vous avez encore
Municipal
les
Planning Act. And under
avec
Section
les éléments de
59.1, you could
Donc,
also
on
impose
s'entend
different
qu'il y
terms
a
and
certaines modalités
conditions,
qui
for
sont
example,
raisonnables
different
pour
reasonable
permettre
conditions
le
and
bâtiment
terms in order to
l'implantation
frame
du site et
the
les autres éléments là, sont
building and
illustrés sur
the
la diapositive
opening of the
suivante.
scent. And you can see the rest of the articles
Donc,
here in front of
comme
you.
vous le savez probablement,
As
le dossier
you
a commencé
undoubtedly
avec le
know,
conseil
there's a history behind this issue. The council dealt with the matter last year already in order to allow
d'une habitation
the
multifamiliale
building of
existante.
one 10
Donc,
unit
le plan que vous
multifamily
avez devant vous,
building.
c'est
What you
effectivement le
see in
plan
front of
que
you
le
is
conseil
the
avait autorisé à l'époque.
plan that had been authorized by council
On parlait
last year.
d'une habitation de
At
10
the time,
logements
we were talking about a 10
avec
unit
seulement
building with one story with parking in order to
et puis le
accommodate
bâtiment qui
these.
était
And
proposé
the building proposed
était
at the
celui que
time
vous avez devant
was
vous.
what you see here.
Donc, depuis cette adoption
Now,
ou
since
l'approbation,
then, since that approval,
la municipalité a quand même
the
eu des discussions
municipality
avec
has had
l'habitation
discussions with
New-Brunswick
the
pour
housing
la
NB
possibilité là, de
to
doubler
see if it would be possible to double
nombre de
the
logements
number
disponibles sur
of
le site.
units that would be allowed on the
D'économie
site
d'échelle,
in
question
order, to take advantage of economies of scale and to see if we could increase the number of affordable housing units in the municipality. So the site plan does not change overly, except that there would be another building behind the existing building. the buffer zone
qui avait été essentiellement protégé
that
à
had
cause
been
des conditions
protected
demeurent
by the
pareilles.
different conditions will remain the same.
Une portion du
So
terrain
there's a
qui serait
portion of the lot that would not be developed. We're talking about a 36 by 50 meter size. In total, there would be 20 units in two different buildings, and each building would house 10 units on one floor. Once again, the objective would be to use the same architectural model, the same construction model as had been authorized by council in the past. And so here you can see the, the, the plan that shows the scope of the project and the amendment to the zoning bylaw that is being asked. So that wraps up my part of the public hearing. We had received comments, written comments, and Mr. Clerk is going to let us know what they were, and we'll also be able to hear the public if there are any comments or concerns. So that wraps up my part of the hearing. Thank you. Any questions for Alexandre before we go on to the letters? Councillor Godbout, thank you. It's just a clarification, the buffer zone. There are a number of trees right now in that buffer zone. There's a lot of green cover. Do you expect that we will be able to maintain that green cover, or will we have to remove a part of it in order to build the two buildings? No, the intention is to present these as to leave it as is. And this could be included in different conditions to make sure that the woods, the forest must be maintained, for example. Thank you, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. My question was the same one. Thank you. So Councillor Boudreau, thank you. I just wanted to have an idea of what was told to the citizens. Did they know more or less what was coming, or did they just learn it tonight? For the width and the number of units being proposed, are they just learning that here this evening for the first time? Well, to answer your question, I'm sure that well, we did send notices to a number of 55 different landowners in the area, and we also shared a technical information sheet. In the past, we used to just send a notice with a description. Now we send a technical information sheet with a lot more information on it. And a fact in this fact sheet, we mentioned the number of units being proposed and the height of the units in question. So we gave a fair bit of information on these fact sheet, and we asked people to contact us or to come here this evening if they had further questions for us, for staff, if they wanted to share their concerns with council. Okay, I just wanted to know what had been told to the citizens. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Melançon, I know we received several letters. Yes, we received a number of emails from different residents. So first one, I live on Central Street near the intersection where they're planning on building more apartments. When we bought the house in 2005, we were told it was a residential area with many bylaws to follow, like no trailers on the property. And I even had a neighbor who received a fine from the city for parking an ATV on the street because his driveway had just been paved. I myself received a warning to cut my grass when I was sick, and it wasn't even more than 5 centimeters high. I have seen trees disappear in my area and houses and semi-detached take their place. Do you know, when we first moved in here, there were deer that lived close by. They would cross the street. There were 5 of them. Now we see four-wheelers and other off-road vehicles, not to mention the traffic that has tripled on this street and speeding, which is a big problem. I've seen cars not stop at the crosswalk or for school buses. I've seen kids almost get hit crossing in front of a bus that had its lights on. Why not develop outside instead of coming in and destroying our neighborhoods with your apartment blocks that'll reduce visibility, sunlight, increase traffic, pollution, noise, and reduce the value of our properties? I did not choose this area, and especially Dieppe, to feel like I was living downtown or in a big city. I was attracted by the beauty, the nature, the tranquility here. But the mayor and our councillors prefer dollars. You see what Moncton is beginning? Soon we will be overrun by drugs and street gangs. Did you know that I feel less and less safe in my own home? We've had enough with the development with near Anna Malenfant School. Leave us alone and go build your apartment blocks away from residential areas. My daughter can't even find an affordable rent. If only the priorities were in the right place. Think about the future and the environment. It's not just a question of abolishing plastic bags. Thank you. A citizen from Dieppe. Hello. I have been a resident of 944 Barachois Street in Dieppe since 2019. In such a short period of time, the city has already changed a lot, especially in terms of the number of houses, and I guess also in terms of the number of residents. As a mother of a 6-year-old, I can tell you that I'm having a hard time enrolling my daughter in activities as they are filling so quickly. Swimming lessons, bike lessons, dance lessons. This lot, 706-88650, and a portion of 0098-7594 is far from downtown, which makes walking impossible unless you have a lot of time and energy. I don't think this land is well located for low income and senior housing, and it is housing as it is far from all businesses and downtown. Why not use this land to provide more facilities for the residents of Dieppe? For example, tennis courts or basketball courts or community gardens or even a small cafe and bakery, which would serve the residents of our neighborhood or those who go to the Rotary Park. Of course, without cutting down a single tree. I have lived in larger cities such as Montreal and Paris, and I can tell you that in those cities, they try to replant trees, not cut them down. And people use public transportation much more because there's more availability. Thank you, Véronique Cormier. I'm writing to you because I wish to object to the proposed construction of residential buildings on the lots indicated in the subject line of this email for the following reasons. There is very little vacant land available that is owned by the city. From a strategic point of view, it'd be better to keep them for future infrastructure need for the city instead of having to cut down more forests. 2, there is enough housing in the area. There are no facilities or businesses close to our homes, and we have to use polluting transportation to do any activity. You talk about densification and stopping sprawl, but what good is it if we all have to drive to work or shop or play sports, etc.? There are no environmental benefits. Can you densify the parts of the city that are already dense before trying to densify remote areas? 3, homes are already being built on several private lots. Why use city land for more housing? And if it is to make affordable housing, why isolate these homes from any city business or facility? These households probably cannot afford a car and will have to rely on public transportation, which is not efficient at all. We don't want big buildings next to our homes. Stop depreciating the value of our property. We want city bylaws that will prevent the construction of buildings over 2 stories high next to our homes. Respect your taxpayers. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give my opinion. Shalim Chatoui. And resident of Barachois Street. I received your letter regarding the Melanson Road project. While I support the development of affordable housing, I do not believe that it belongs in a residential setting. The reason I oppose it is because we are residents of Nugent Street and the neighborhood has had a taste of what lower class neighbors can do to our surroundings. We own a semi-detached. We've owned it for 15 years. This property was supposed to be a starter home, but we felt comfortable there. And after paying off our house, we decided to stay and to grow our family. We love the woods behind the house, which helps to hide the noise of cars going by on the increasingly busy Melanson Road. children of the neighborhood visit us and they have fun, hours of fun discovering new things in their forest. And this allows getting together with the parents of the neighborhood that we qualify as excellent neighbors. During the pandemic, the other side of our duplex was sold. An African woman bought it, but never moved in. She chose to rent it out. A low-income Caucasian family moved in, and this is the beginning of a horror story in a once quiet Dieppe neighborhood. The police come and go on a regular basis. These people have no regard for rules, noise, respect, cleanliness, and we no longer feel safe. Our child is developing fears. She wakes up at night by the nauseating smell of smoke that seeps between the walls of our house. Some neighbors are thinking of moving, others have already sold. We feel forced to move too, and the city won't do anything to help or can't help. We have also have a visit from a unhoused man on blue bag days. He rides his bike around making holes in the bags and collecting bottles. The city had already told us that the land behind Nugent was owned by Dieppe and that nothing was being planned. Of course, the city is growing, and I know that space will not always be vacant. If this affordable housing project is approved, I fear that there will be a sequel, and the rest of Malongston will become a low-income apartment block road. From our experience, we now know that there is nothing to be done about the nuisance in a neighborhood. Our lawyer has given us an ultimatum to sell or file a suit for nuisance. People who have nothing also have nothing to lose. This is unfortunate. Sincerely, Amit.
Je suis résident du quartier où il va y
I'm a
avoir de la
resident of the neighborhood where there's going to be construction of a project on the court of Central Melançon. We have a beautiful tree line behind us, and we would be more than happy if it was cleared. When we bought our house at 863 Central in November 2022, it was explained that one, not two-story construction would possibly be built, that the trees would not be cut down and would not the construction would be on the other side, confined by the city at last year's meeting. We bought our first home with this agreement. However, we are disappointed with the memo that announces another building. We feel this is one is more than enough given the size of the lot, and we do not agree. That being said, we are very concerned that what has been said about the trees will not be respected, especially with the second construction. Deforestation in Dieppe has been a big criticism, especially on Central and in the Melançon Central area. And we think it would be very reasonable and realistic to keep the wood lot and not cut the forest. Forest is more important than ever in our area, and it would be a shame to see our beautiful city, which was filled with forest, continue to be deforested in a hurry. Thank you for taking this into consideration. Christine Lafance and Corey Plur from Central Street. Thank you, Your Worship. These are the letters and emails received. Thank you. Are there any individuals in the room who have anything to add that you want to present or that you haven't presented? If so, please come forward to the microphone. Good evening. Please identify yourselves. Good evening. I'm Julie Plourde, the Corey Plourde. I'm the writer of the last email you read. By way of information, what we purchased at 863 Central Street is the parcel of land right next to this zone. So on Central, the second house, and the building will be behind our home. When we purchased the home, we knew that some discussions had been underway, but it was confirmed for the building of the first building without knowing that there was going to be a second building. We were told maybe there would be one. It wasn't confirmed, but we were poorly informed at the time. And to my surprise, a few weeks ago, we saw the letter that was indicating the building of a second building. And so we were dealing with the first one, and it was quite disappointing for us. So I'm wondering if there is any way of not cutting down the trees behind our house because the trees cover the sight lines to the second building. The second building is very disappointing for us. We're hearing stories of other people who are talking about what may happen. So we're wondering if it's possible to have a law or rules in place which will limit any cutting near homes so we can preserve this strip of trees that will be hiding these buildings that are behind us, and so we can maintain our privacy. I'll ask the head planner who did the presentation a moment ago to reassure you to a certain extent with regard to what has been planned. Thank you for this question. I want to draw your attention, members of the public and the councillors who are here. As mentioned, we're talking about a buffer zone of 36 meters wide and 50 meters deep. So this buffer zone, which is existing, can be maintained through imposing a specific condition that there be no physical structures that can be built within this buffer zone. And there's another element which I would like to repeat is that there will be there will be reforestation, there will be planting of trees of a certain size, which is required under the bylaws and will be built around the site in question. So more trees, some 30 new trees will be planted on this construction site. So this will provide us with an opportunity to show a more natural landscaping. And if it can soften the look of the building which is being proposed to be built. Thank you. May I also add a clarification that is the city of Dieppe that is going to be managing this project. So we establish the parameters of what is going to be allowed. So when we say that we are going to protect 36 meters of this buffer zone, we provide the directives to the contractors who are undertaking the project. So we confirm that we have the control and not a developer. We have full control over what's going to be happening for the construction site. It's a one-story building. Those who don't remember, perhaps, that it was the relocating of a home and the kind of residents who are going to be living there. We checked the site, 3 emergency calls. They were all 911 calls for an ambulance service for that building. I just wanted to share with you that these are people who are integrated into the community. They want to contribute to our community. And also, there's a project underway in 2024 along Melançon and Fox Creek Road. And there's a path which is going to be built along that site. So we'll be increasing the safety of young people and those who want to be out walking or bicycling. These are activities that are going to complement this building of these 2 buildings and affordable housing, and will be keeping things safe too. Thank you, Mr. Melançon. Any other comments? So I thank you for that, and let's move on with questions by members of the public. Are there any further questions with regard to any of the items? It's a free-for-all. If there are no further questions by members of the public, let's move on to our daily activities. No? Then let's move on to item 9, adoption of minutes of the regular council meeting held on April 11, 2023, moved by Councillor Petitot, seconded by Councillor Godet. On the question. No questions? All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. The minutes of April 11th have been passed as distributed. This brings us to item 10, Motions, memorandums, and nominations. 10.1.1. For a third consecutive year, we have been asked to participate in Dandelion Madness. So it's for the month of May. We invite people to not cut their lawns and to contribute to nature and the environment during the month of May. It's a voluntary thing. Nothing is being imposed. The residents are encouraged to participate and to do their small part to protect the environment and all the benefits that will accrue. So we ask that no lawns be mowed in May. For the natural needs of bees in particular, amongst others, and other insects too. I think many people have participated in the past, and I certainly hope that that will continue this year. Having said this, are there any questions by members of Councillor? Councillor Boudreau? Thank you, Your Worship. With regard to the bylaw C35, is that going to be changed once May has gone by? I think we're going to manage and resolve the issue of cutting trees. And with regard to staff who are going to be hired through the course of the year, I would say that we'll be looking at this for 2024 with regard to which changes or strategies or other amendments that will be done. Okay. We are looking at the realities of our operational needs. That's it? With regard to the resolution and the reading of it, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council adopt the Dandelion Madness program for the month of May 2023, during which the population is invited not to mow the lawn or parts of the lawn in order to promote insect pollination. I so move. Moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Boudreau on the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. The resolution is passed as presented. 10.2 Community Development. 10.2.1 Grant request for Jeux de l'Acadie from our neighbors in Memramcook. Yes, Your Worship. The village of Memramcook is hosting the Jeux de l'Acadie at the end of June, early July. We've received a request from the organizing committee, and after analyzing and seeing the activities that are happening here and the lodging that's happening here, it was assessed and suggested that the amount of $6,000 be contributed. This is the recommendation of staff. Thank you. To read the resolution, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council authorized a final contribution in the amount of $6,000 to the organizing committee of the 42e Finale des Jeux de l'Acadie to be held in Memramcook and in part in Dieppe from June 28th to July 2nd, 2023, and further authorize this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-20-18-2870, General Operating Budget Tourism. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. Question? Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I'm in favor of the resolution, but I'd like to have a little bit more information about the account it's coming from. Since it's the General Operating Budget Tourism, this is fairly new to us as to how we finance these grants, but could you give us a little bit more information? Is this amount available in the budget from year? I just wanted to know what kind of amounts were available. Mr. Leblanc, the tourism budget is the tax on lodging that comes back to the town of Dieppe. We have some $80,000 to play with over the course of the year, and we're comfortable making the recommendation of $6,000 for this grant request. Thank you. Any further questions? If there are none, those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Passed as read. This brings us to 10.2.2, adoption of policy L1. The presentation was made a moment ago by Mr. Leblanc. If you're all comfortable, this is the time to pass it this evening. Thank you. To read the resolution, Councillor Le Boutillier. There you go. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council repeal policy L1 2022 entitled Rental Rates for Facilities and Municipal Spaces and adopt policy L1 2023 entitled Rental Rates for Facilities and Municipal Spaces. I so move. Moved by Councillor Le Boutillier, seconded by Councillor Godet on the question. On the question, Councillor Godbout. Thank you. In their discussions in March 2022 about this policy, we had heard some suggestions and some follow-up. These are things that are going to be considered in the long-term policy. So we're making some short-term changes for the coming year. When we talk about short-term, I just want to clarify what that means, because there were some issues like we had talked about preferential rates for immigrants, for example. And I understand that these have not been set aside, but I wanted to know what is short-term and long-term. What is meant by these? Mr. Leblanc. Thank you for this question. Clearly, we have to look at all our policies, which are policy L1, L14. These are policies, and we're bringing something forward which is fairly simple. But as we think about all the policies, much more thinking about them can be done. So the short term is what we're presenting here today, and in the longer term, my intention is to bring this forward to you during the budget deliberations. So we're looking at all of our policies, and when we talk about them in a concise way. So next year we're looking at 2 years, another council, another mandate. I'm just looking, the intention is to bring that forward this year. Thank you. Thank you for this question. Any other questions? If there are none, all those in favor of resolution will signify. Had you a question? No? Okay. I wasn't sure. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Carried. Thank you. 10.3. Fire Department. Here's a surplus item. We have a policy that when we have a surplus article, we have to come back to council to determine it. So there was a purchase of a Zodiac boat and the accompanying outboard motor. Now that we have received these items, we needed a directive for this item to be available to be sold. We want to begin this exercise, and if someone is going to do it, then we will be determining it as a surplus item. Thank you for the reading of this resolution, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council determined the following assets as surplus items and authorized the Fire Department to proceed with the sale of these equipments: Zodiac boat, outboard motor. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet on the question. Question, Councillor Godbout. Could you remind us what the purchase price of the Zodiac boat was? Ballpark. Marc Cormier couldn't be here tonight, so we can come back to you with that information. As a sale procedure, how is the sale price established? I didn't see how that sale price was established. Is there a formula to be used? It's going to make it available on our website, and we'll share it with all other fire services, all other municipalities in New Brunswick. That's probably those two processes. Managed by the city? That's right, managed by the city. And also the public could purchase it? Yes, available to the public. Did you want to go on the river with the boat? Who knows? Any further questions? If none, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against nay. Carried. 10.4.1 Tender award for the reconstruction of Park Drive. This file had been identified as one of the 2023 projects. It's a tender. 4 submissions were received, and the tender is awarded to McDonald Paving Construction at a cost of $1,074,310 plus HST, and authorize Englobe Corp at the cost of $90,000 plus HST. And the accounts have been identified, and there's also a budget transfer in the amount of $220,000, which is part of the resolution. And I just want to specify that Park Drive is reconstruction is an element and includes a separate access for pedestrians and bicycles. So we want to make this safe for those who go to Rotary Park. This is the staff recommendation following the call for tenders. To read the resolution, Councillor Brideau. Everyone seems shy this evening. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council award the tender for reconstruction Promenade du Parc Drive and Trail project to the lowest bidder, McDonald Paving and Construction Limited, at the cost of $1,074,310 plus HST. Authorize Englobe Corp to undertake the engineering services relating to said project at the cost of $90,000 plus HST, and further authorize that these expenditures be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7671, General Capital Budget, Promenade du Parc. That Council authorize a budget transfer in the amount of $220,000 from account number 7-4-20-12-8920, General Capital Reserve Fund, to account number 3-3-35-58-7671, General Capital Budget, Promenade du Parc. I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Rideau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question. No questions. Those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against nay. Carried. This brings us to operations. 10.5.1 lease line marking robot for sports fields. Mr. Melançon. Well, technology has affected some of our operations. So this has been recommended after a leasing of a turf tank for the estimated cost of $63,000 for a 3-year lease, which will do the work, and we will require fewer human resources to do this work. So we want to do a lease for 3 years and assess the relevance of this tool, and then we'll see what the future holds for us. So this resolution is to go ahead with this lease so that it be available this summer. Thank you. To read this resolution, pardon me.
Proposé par le conseiller
Mover.
Thibodeau.
Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question, Councillor Godbout. I wanted to comment before the resolution was read. With regard to transparency, this contract was executed already, so we are not authorizing this, but we are ratifying the decision. So it seems to me that the resolution could be clear, because I appreciate the transparency that happened during the documents, but it's not reflected in the resolution. So Would you propose an amendment? Well, the whole resolution wasn't read in total, but we're ratifying the decision following a monetary exchange of American funds. So we realized after converting from American funds to Canadian funds. I don't have any issue with the resolution, but I find that the resolution could be more transparent, and because we're here to ratify it rather than pass it. Would you, I can do the reading. The council authorized a 3-year lease of a sport field line marking robot, Turf Tank 1 model, with Turf Tank at the estimated cost of $63,000 plus HST and shipping charges, and further authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 1-2-70-80-3000, general operating budget, sports fields facilities. I so move, Your Worship. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by
Pardon? Madame Turgeon-Roy.
Councillor Turgeon-Roy,
Oui.
that it be ratified.
Question.
Questions?
Madame Leboutillier.
Councillor Le Boutillier. Thank you, Your Worship. Concerning the lease, is this lease which would allow us to purchase it if we're satisfied with how it works? Good evening, Mr. Bork. Good evening. In this case, it's a rental, a lease. It's not one with an option to purchase. Other municipalities in New Brunswick and in Nova Scotia prefer this option because we have the services that come with it. There are 2 services, a representative who comes twice during the summer to do training and to reprogram the machine and do maintenance. That is part of the lease. And in this lease amount, there's the painting that comes with it. So normally we buy the paint to line our fields. They have a module or a model rather that's coming out this year, which will allow it to do logos. So it's the whole matter of having the best technology possible for this equipment. And our intention is that after 3 years, if we're satisfied with this piece of equipment and the work it does, is to do a tender to buy one or to return the lease item and get a more modern one. This is the approach that other municipalities have adopted, and they begin a new lease with a new machine. So this machine is only going to be leased for 3 years with no purchase option. After 3 years, the machine is returned. A couple of years ago, and I forget now, it was for some equipment on the vehicles. We couldn't lease things as a municipality. I'm asking for a clarification about what that was. In the case you're mentioning, we didn't have a right to do a lease acquisition, lease purchase. It was like a disguised loan. And this allowed us to correct the situation. But for the lease, there was no problem. There was no issue. Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Oh, Mr. Godet, you had a question. We'll give you the answer after we vote. Yes, I have a question. It's about half the price of a new one. In the document, it was 120,000. So in the 3 years of this lease, is there a guarantee? Yes, it's fully warranted for the 3 years, and we get the paint to operate it. If we were to purchase it, we don't get the paint for the marking And, for updates, it's not the same kind of service. If we buy it, there's much more responsibility on us. So it's not going to cost us any more over the 3 years. If the machine breaks down, they come and repair it, yes, and they give us one. If they have to take it back, they loan us one. They repair the first one, then bring it back to us. They do all of that because of the lease. Thank you. Once again, those in after all those in favor, resolution is passed.
Maintenant au 10.5.2, achat de fourgonnettes.
10.5.2. This is the purchase of a cargo van. Mr. Melançon? Yes. We're going to look at 10.5.2 and 10.5.3 because they're very similar. So there were two tenders, and it was very difficult to receive bids to buy vehicles for our operational uses. We received one bid from TriStar Fine Cars for a cargo van, one for public works, one for recreation, both of them Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. It's slightly different models, but very similar. And one of them is under budget and the other one's just slightly over budget. So the one that is just over budget is a four-seater rather than just a two-seater. So we recommend that you purchase it. These are vehicles that are for operational purposes. So there were specifications in the tender, the call for tender, and the staff recommends this. Now, we did look at other vehicles that should be, we have other vehicles that should be changed because just to say that throughout municipalities across the country, there's a change of fleet. So we're see if we can maintain our base operational purposes of activities in the city with these two vehicles. These are for needs of public works and facilities sector. We see a lot of contractors use this kind of vehicle, so we wanted to make sure that they were really well adapted for this purposes, and they are. Thank you. Thank you. To read the resolution, Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the contract for the purchase of a cargo van 2023 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter 2500 cargo 170 HR model for the public works sector to TriStar Fine Cars Inc., Mercedes-Benz Moncton, at the cost of $65,396.50 plus HST, pursuant to a proposal dated March 28, 2023, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-20-12-7901, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, Public Works. And I so move. Thank you. Somebody to second it. Councillor Brideau will second on the question. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. Thank you for the information, Mr. Melançon. I agree with you. It might seem that we're giving ourselves all sorts of privileges because of the brand of this truck, but does our policy insist that we buy new vehicles? The policy says that we need vehicles that will meet our operational needs. Right now, the tender was for new vehicles. I can mention to you that in the future, we will consider rentals or purchases. For the future tenders, we've discussed it amongst the team. Because as I was reading the information and the justification, that was the question that came to mind at the time. We didn't go to a secondary market. Well, one of these vans, one of the vans has a life expectancy of 16 years. And that comes into the assessment of determining if we're going to purchase or lease. The mileage, the kilometers won't be very high, but that's a part of the calculation as well. That helps us determine if we're going out for purchase or for lease. So it's not just for lease, but I'm talking about a second-hand vehicles, not just leased vehicles. There is a shortage of vehicles, of rental vehicles, and for purchase, but I can ask Mr. Bourque if they did consider that. Mr. Bourque? Well, in this case, in the second tender, we did have a proposal for a used vehicle from a dealer from outside the province of New Brunswick. It was a 3-year-old vehicle with 51,000 kilometers. It was a high roof van, similar to the one that we're buying. It was a different brand, but the local dealer couldn't get us that vehicle for another 36 months. But it was $9,000 more expensive than what we're proposing here this evening. So they submitted to us, and we refused it because of that, because that wasn't what was called for in the tender, though we could have considered it. But now we have a vehicle that is of the brand new and for cheaper than the used vehicle. And the market for this type of van, there's all sorts of companies, delivery companies that use them, Amazon and others. So there's a shortage of them. We need these cargo vans with the rear wheel drive, and it's more difficult to find. But we need that because we also haul trailers with these two vans. So of course this limited us somewhat, but the other option we had, or we would have had, was to buy a 1-ton truck with a box, and we'd had that in the past, but we did a quick calculation, and with Alexandre will be able to help us in the future. But in that case, we're talking about 9% lesser gas, uh, more or higher consumption, gas consumption, if we just put a box on a van. So the tender was for a new vehicle, and that's why we had to refuse the one that was proposed to us, the used one. But the market for the used vehicles is very, very active because of the shortage. So just for your information. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It is carried as presented, which brings us to the second one. Yes, 10.5.3, the second cargo van. Yes, so it's the same supplier for $73,326,050, and it's for approval of council this evening. Councillor Godet? Thank you, Your Worship. So that council award the contract for the purchase of a cargo van 2023 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter 2500 crew 144HR model for the facilities sector to Tristar Fine Cars Inc., Mercedes-Benz Moncton, at the cost of $73,326,050 plus HST, pursuant to a proposal dated March 28, 2023, and authorize that this expenditure to be freight from account number 3-3-20-12-7903, the general capital budget, general equipment purchase, facilities. And I so moved. Moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Councillor Le Boutillier on the question. No questions. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Carried as presented. Which brings us to 10.5.4, the purchase of 2 articulated tractors. So once following a call for tenders, we received 3 bids after that call, and it is recommended that for 2 tractors, which we need to remove snow from sidewalks and work other jobs during the summer, we recommend that we buy a McLean model from Atlantic Coastal Equipment for a total cost of $331,144,054 plus HST, with the account number as you see here from the general capital budget, general equipment purchase, public works, and that's staff recommendation. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau to read the recommendation. Thank you, Your Worship. That council award the contract for the purchase of 2 articulated tractors, 2023 McLean MV5 model for the operations department to Atlantic Coastal Equipment at the total cost of $331,144,054 plus HST, pursuant to its proposal dated March 22nd, 2023, and authorize that this expenditure be defrayed from account number 3-3-20-12-7901, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, Public Works. And I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy on the question. If there are none, all those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. It is carried as presented. We now move on to 10.6.1. Mr. Melanson, we received an application from Bonte Foods to extend their plan. So we're asking to set a date for a public presentation and a public hearing. We suggest a public presentation on May 8th at 7 p.m. here at Dieppe City Hall and a public hearing on June 12th at 7 p.m. here at City Hall. And we also ask the recommendation of the Planning Advisory Committee, of course. We ask for their written views, and we ask to extend the deadline to pursuant of Section 110 to July 10th to hear all of the details of the project and the changes being recommended to the zoning bylaw and so on. Thank you. For who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. That council schedule a public presentation on May 8, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Dieppe City Hall to present the proposed amendments to the Generalized Land Use Map, Municipal Development Plan Bylaw Z9 2017, and schedule a public hearing on June 12, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Dieppe City Hall in order to hear objections to the proposed amendments to the zoning map, zoning bylaw Z10 2021, for the land identified under PID 0067 4416 to accommodate the expansion of a light industrial use. And that council requests the written views of the Planning Advisory Committee and extend the deadline pursuant to Section 110.3 of the Community Planning Act to July 10th, 2023 with regard to the above mentioned project, and I so move. Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. Councillor Godbout. Yes, thank you. I have a question, Your Worship. My question is on the timing of this resolution. If the applicant has established all of the elements that are required to allow us to move forward on this, because in reading the report, there isn't a lot of information, a lot of points where it says we have not yet be received. It says, do we need a variance? No information available on the refrigeration, the type of refrigeration, no information yet. There are conclusions that say, well, after this is not sufficient we could impose conditions on a busy artery such as Champlain, but once we've started the process, it's because it's very difficult to slow it down. But on the other hand, once if we are starting the process, it's because we have the information. But do we have the information necessary to answer the public's information? And do we need to have the information in order to be able to give the information necessary. So in reading the documents in support of this application, I find it's very short. So do we have enough, or when do we find that it's the right time? Because in other cases, we find ourselves in situations where the PAC doesn't have answers to all its questions. So we could ask for amendments, and I'm just asking because I'm in reading the document, I feel that there's a lot missing here. The conclusion is that there's a lot of information missing. The provincial governments have not yet responded, and so how are we going to answer the questions of public if we don't have all the information? That's what I was thinking when I read it.
Monsieur Girard.
Merci beaucoup pour la
Yeah.
question.
Thank you for this question. For the matter of the refrigeration, the province requires, at the discretion of the planners, to consult various departments at the provincial level. We sent the request in to various departments at the provincial level, and they asked us to check with the promoter as to what kind of refrigeration system they would be using. We don't necessarily need this information for the application. It's something that we need to clarify during the public hearing or public presentation, or when the advisory committee meets. Today, we are establishing a date for public hearings to hear all the details of the project. With regard to the base of the building, yes, we have concerns. We have raised concerns with the developer. The developer has the right to put an application, even if the staff can't support all components of the application. We mentioned that during the public hearing, we mentioned it in the report that we would like the development light the building. It's a building that is not very interesting to look at, and even if it's an industrial setting, we could have taken into account the context of the streetscape. And if the council wants to allow the rezoning request, then the council can consider imposing design architectural requirements in order to improve the look, the way it appears. So at this stage of the game, we're comfortable beginning the process. We don't necessarily think there's any lack of information in particular. There will be more information forthcoming, and that's why there's a process which lasts fairly long and includes presentations. It won't be the last time we're going to be providing information to you. Thank you. That helps a lot to clear things up. I'll be voting in favor of these dates tonight, and I know we can always change the dates if need be. But there is some concern about answers to be received by the Department of Environment because they have asked questions about the refrigeration units with regard to air quality and the fact that they're close to the school. I want to understand that better, and I'm sure the public will have some questions to ask and very specific questions during these sessions. And we should have those specifics by the time we get to the public hearing. Yes, I've noted that. Thank you. Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. I was trying to understand the zoning as such, and it goes way far back, I'm sure, but institutional zoning compared to the school that's behind there, the zoning is a commercial zoning for this. I know you want to change it from commercial to industrial. That's right. Great. Thank you. Thank you. No one else? All those in favor of the resolution will signify by saying aye. Against, nay. Carried. Thank you. 11, municipal bylaws, nothing for this evening. 12, notice of motion, none. 13, inquiries and announcements by members of council. And we'll begin with Councillor Godbout. I wanted to do some follow-up about dog licenses, but I can come back. And also, another announcement is that we held a meeting with the Kodiak Regional Police Authority, and in our discussions, we were talking about projects in some of our neighboring communities. Unfortunately, they are dealing with picking up dirty needles, and a comment was heard, not necessarily coming from the RCMP or from the authority, but the rules and regulations of the municipality, that the staff, the bylaw enforcement officers, might find themselves in this situation. So I wanted to better understand, here in the city of Dieppe, do we have a policy or a bylaw or something that applies to that? And are there employees who are in the situation of having to pick up dirty needles or use needles? The comment we heard was that the perceived danger of this work is not necessarily a real danger, and that's the reason why it's done by the municipality employees or municipal employees. So do we have this policy? Do we have employees who are involved in picking up used needles? I had hoped Mr. Sima was here because he could have answered. I know there is a procedure in place to make sure that employees are protected, and I will be sending that information to you and clarify that the message to be given to staff is to call the municipality and say there's a service that is available. That's what I wanted to clear up. Either the municipality or a offsite agent, another agency. Thank you. That's it? Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to congratulate all volunteers who were recognized at the chalet, the first gala that was organized. Congratulations and bravo to your whole team, Denis. It was wonderful. And we really felt that the volunteers were proud to be recognized, and it really went well. So congratulations. My hat's off to you for the work. That's it for me this week. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Worship. I simply wanted to thank and congratulate all citizens who participated in the cleanup on Earth Day. Thank you very much for doing that work. That's it? Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. Pardon me, I don't have anything this evening. Thank you. Councillor Boudreau. Thank you, Your Worship. To come back to the community cleanup, I want to say congratulations for celebrating Earth Day. Things went well. We gave out small trees. Councillor Turgeon-Roy and I did one section, and we found a lot of garbage to pick up. We were a little frustrated to see the quantity of waste that was thrown in that area. Do we have any figures as to how many bags of garbage were picked up, the number of people who visited our booth during that day? Yes, thank you for this question. It was a beautiful day. We had a great temperature, great weather for it. More than 300 bags of garbage were picked up, a fair number. 70 seedlings found their families to be adopted. So it was a great undertaking by the community. Thank you. I'd like to come back to C35, the matter of the lawns. I know the new environmental director is very busy with the whole tree issue and green cover. We have all kinds of things to catch up on, environmentally speaking. But it's my opinion that we should review this bylaw as soon as possible and in 2024, if it's possible. And given the experience we had last year with this bylaw, we saw that it's not really answering our needs and it is not uh, uh, reacting to the green vision that we have for this city. And maybe we could suspend this bylaw for the summer or find some way. I'm not sure what's going to happen this summer because of this bylaw. So that's my comment. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Brideau. Pardon me. Councillor Boutillier, thank you, Your Worship. I have some questions and congratulations. My question was, over the weekend, we had the Ringgit Championship, and with the new purchase of the floor, we are going to be holding major events in the future. And the mayor did the official opening, and it went really well, by the way. So on the first day, there was an opening ceremony for the championship where all the teams arrived. There were lots of people around. It lasted about an hour, and it was remarkable that we didn't have this space, and that's fine. But we need to address what the plan is that we have to provide with regard to traffic. We come from Dieppe. We know there's probably the community college next door. So there was some frustration with regard to people coming from outside the city who didn't know where to park for this event. These were small things. You know, it's a new complex, it's a new facility. It's a good thing to raise it, but once again, our facilities are unbelievable. People are thrilled with what great facilities we have. So congratulations. Things are clean. We hear that repeatedly about our facilities. So I simply wanted to raise that because I had been told that several times over the weekend. Also, the AJL Arena. Are we looking at paving anytime soon in the short, medium, or long term? Because there's some major potholes and it's starting to, you know, I wonder if it was in anyone's view. We'll be checking. I see Mr. Book has already left, but we'll check and come back to you. And so that's it. With regard to congratulations, I wanted to begin by congratulating the Ringgit under 16 AA, who are now the Canadian champions. And I'm in a bit of a conflict of interest because my daughter is the head coach. There are four others, of course, helping. So it's great that two other young women are in charge of this team, and they won 9 matches. They won all their games, and once again, they became the Canadian champions. And in such a championship, there are prizes, team prizes, first lines, second lines, and there's Noémie Morin, who was the goalkeeper on the team, who had a great championship. She was on the All-Star team, and Louis Leblanc very recently on the All-Star team, and Ashley Bourgeois from Memram Cook, as well as our two Ringgit stars, the Snowden sisters from Moncton. It's the 6th or 7th consecutive year, but all the same, it's quite an accomplishment. And I also wanted to say that over the course of the weekend, we had the Eastern Championship, which is Quebec, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. There are 4 levels. There are young ladies age 12 and up. There's the 18 and up teams. It was a great championship, and it's a sport that we're very strong at here. The majority of the players come from Dieppe, and we won 3 of the 4 levels, the under 14, under 16, and 18 years. So congratulations to all the players. It's quite an accomplishment. And next year, we'll have the Canadian Championship. One last thing from me, Your Worship. I wanted to mention that I have another colleague. We were teasing each other, but I certainly think that Councillor Thibodeau should be mentioned, and Roland Leblanc, Corinne's spouse. We had a lovely evening. And for the citizens and members of the team, I wouldn't be here. I won't be here this Thursday for the opening. I'm away. It's impossible to be there this Thursday, but please know that I'll be watching, and if I have any questions, I'll get back to you. That's it for me this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having mentioned that next year we are holding the Canadian Ranget Championship here, and this weekend's event was just a warm-up to see what we can do and accomplish, and I think that people left very happy, except for the whole matter of parking, because even of course, I was there to do the opening ceremony of the tournament, and I went around a long time before I found a spot, and it wasn't very close by either. So that's a consideration that we should keep in mind for the future. And the signage as well, to send people to our neighbors being the community college. Other than that, thank you to members of council for this fundraising event.
Avant que je ferme ça, je te dis, Monsieur Godet, je vous dois.
Mr. Councillor Govet, I owe you a beer. No, I owe you an apology. An apology I owe you. Thank you. Well, I mentioned it in the past, but I'll mention it again. I'd like to thank everyone who participated in Earth Day and to cleaning up our city and our trails. I saw a lot of young people. That was great. A lot of young people got involved. And so that's what I wanted to say. And I also wanted to talk about Leblanc Road and it needs work. The sooner the better. It's very unsafe. It's very unsafe to walk along it. I know it's not. It wasn't in the plans to pave it this year, but I think. But I think we should do something because have we already started work for this year? Yes. Yeah, we're going to patch it up, to use a word that everybody understands, in order to rebuild it. No, because we have to talk to the people before we put in water and sewage, and we need to talk to the residents. So we're not going to rebuild it, but at least meanwhile we're going to make sure that it's passable by cars, and we're going to just keep patching it. Thank you. That's all. Just one thing on the fundraiser. Almost $20,000 were collected, so it was a great community event. That it's been going on for a long time now, and it's been it helps support Nazareth House, and so thank you to everybody who participated. I'm sure that. I'm sure you didn't win, but you might have been second. So I'll give you second place. But thank you And so continue, have a great evening, and keep working. Thank you to all.